Hey there bookworms, and welcome to another What I Read This Month vlog. This is the month of December 2023, the last month of the year. It's now January 2024. Where did that year go? I'm going to try recording this vlog with my earpods in and using the speaker on those to see if it improves the sound of my vlogs. We'll see. It's just an experiment, so we'll see how that goes. So without further ado, grab yourself a warm cup of tea or coffee, get settled in, and let's talk books. So the first book that I read, that I finished in December, was Jilly Cooper's Tackle, which is this one here. And I was so excited when this came out because I love Jilly Cooper. I've loved her books for years, especially her Walcha Chronicles books. I may have them on the shelf behind me here, some of them. This book is... I think it's number 12 in the Walcha Chronicles. It helps if you've read the rest of them, but you don't necessarily have to. However, for this one in particular, I think reading the others in the series would probably give you a lot more context for the characters and what's going on in this book, and therefore you would enjoy it more if you've read the others first. So the first one in the series is, I don't know, is that Riders? No, Riders isn't there. The first one is called Riders, and it is set in the 60s, I believe, and that's where the Walcha Chronicles start. And all the characters have their beginnings in that book. So I highly recommend, if you're going to delve into a new series and you're going to start with Jilly Cooper's Walcha Chronicles, start with number 1. But in saying that, if this is the one you get your hands on, it's still a good read. It's not my favorite, and it's still classic Jilly Cooper. It still has the classic puns and humor of Jilly Cooper, but I stand by the first 3 are her best 3. I still love the first 3 the best, in my opinion. But I did enjoy this. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm just looking at my notes there. 4 out of 5. It was really good and enjoyable, and I had been really looking forward to reading it, and it hadn't disappointed. So that's Jilly Cooper's Tackle. The second book that I read, I'm just having a look. Oh, I don't have a copy because I listened to it on Audible, was The Secret History of Christmas by Bill Bryson. I'll put a picture of it here. I learned so much about the traditions and rituals of Christmas through this short audiobook. I really enjoyed it. I haven't read any Bill Bryson before, and I'll definitely be reading more. The history of the traditions of Christmas that we still carry on in some form to this day, and many people around the world do, including the food we eat, the decorations we put up, the rituals that we do with family. I really enjoyed this, and it was told with humour. It was really entertaining to listen to, and I think I gave it 4 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely be listening to more Bill Bryson. I really enjoyed his style of storytelling and non-fiction in a storytelling way. I really enjoyed that. So the third book that I read, which I was really excited to read because I normally love Kristen Hanna, and that's Comfort and Joy by Kristen Hanna. I kind of assumed from this that it would be a Christmas book, as in, you know, tidings of comfort and joy, but it's not really. Not really a Christmas book. It does, some of the books plot happens around Christmas, but I would not call this a Christmas book. So it's basically about Joy. The lead character is Joy. She has had a really rough time in her life. She's at a bit of a crossroads, and she kind of has a bit of an emotional breakdown and decides to run away from her life, choosing to get on a plane and go somewhere at the last minute, that no one, and not telling anyone where she's going, and she's just got no plans. She's just going to have a break from her normal life. But this plane crashes. So the plane doesn't go where she thinks it's going to go. It crashes in a completely random spot, and she is the only survivor. So according to all records, there is no survivors on this plane. She never got on this plane. It didn't go where it was supposed to go, so there's no record of her and where she's gone, and she decides to take advantage of this as a new way to start a new life. So she stumbles upon a small B&B in the hills, run by a man called Daniel and his little son Bobby, and she decides to just start afresh and just be a new person with a new history and a new name and try it on for size. This book is really interesting. It did not go where I thought it was going to go. I really did enjoy the story, despite it not being a Christmas book, and I was kind of prepared for a Christmas book. Be that as it may, really enjoyed this. Another great Kristen Hanna. Love her storytelling, and I really enjoyed the book. I think, gave it 4 out of 5. Definitely worth a read if you come across it. I'd never seen it anywhere before, but if you come across it, I would call it worth a read. It was very well told and had a bit of a plot twist. It didn't go where I thought it was going to go. So yeah, I really enjoyed Comfort and Joy by Kristen Hanna. The 4th book that I read, which was on my shelves, and it was one of the Christmas books that I picked off my shelf, ex-library book, was Christmas Fireside Stories by various authors. Oh man, I was so disappointed by this. Only the first 4 or 5 stories were Christmassy. Christmas Fireside Stories is what it says on the tin. And it wasn't. I mean, the first few were, and they were nice. But then the last, oh goodness, at least the last 2/3 of this book were like random excerpts from books that the author have written. So it was just like out of context chapters from different books, which, was fine, but and they were like fine stories and fine chapters, but out of context and unrelated, and I didn't love it. I finished it but barely. I gave it a 2 out of 5 because I was like, that's not what I was hoping for in this book. I was really disappointed. Yeah, I mean, as a book of short stories even, they felt like unrelated chapters of other books. So yeah, that's Christmas Fireside Stories, 2 out of 5. The 5th one I read, I don't have a copy of this, I listened to it, was My Year by Roald Dahl. So My Year is a chapter for each month of the year. It is observances of nature through the eyes of a child, told by Roald Dahl. And if you grew up on Roald Dahl like I did, you'll really enjoy this. I gave it 4 out of 5. It was beautiful. I laughed, I gasped. And if you love nature, and if you love that sort of childlike way, that childlike innocent way that children look at nature and engage with nature, I really loved it. It was really good. Okay, the 6th book that I read in December. Have you noticed that some people say 6th and some people say 6th? What is that? What is that different pronunciation? Which one's right? Is there a right one? I say 6th, but apparently some people say 6th. I've noticed Ed Sheeran in his songs says 6th. Am I saying it wrong? Is 6th wrong? 6th? I don't know. Anyway, comment down below if you know which one's right, or if there's a right one, or if both are correct. Comment down below because I'm really interested. I really like to know that. So the 6th book that I read in December was Christmas with the Tea Shop Girls by Elaine Everest. And I've read Elaine Everest before and really enjoyed her books. This is actually number 2 in the Tea Shop Girls series, and I haven't read number 1. So I don't know if that affected my experience of reading this book, but it's not really Christmassy. Again, I got another Christmas book that's not really Christmassy. I mean, it referred to Christmas a few times, but that was not the theme of this book. I would not call this a Christmassy book. Apart from the fact that that Christmas is in the title, I would not have known this was a Christmas book. So had a bit of a theme with these, didn't I? Look, it's a great story. It's a kind of domestic story of a small coastal town and the women who live in it and support each other through, I think it's the Second World War. It's the Second World War. And they all work in a tea shop. So I love this. It was a great story, not a Christmas book, but definitely a beautiful story. And if you like Elaine Everest, this is one of her good ones. This is really good. Okay, the next one I read as well, which I listened to on Audible, was Into the Rip by Damien Cove. I'd actually wanted to read this for a while. I'll put a picture of it here. And it's basically a foreigner's take on Australian beach culture and the way Australians approach risk-taking. I thought it was really fascinating. It basically follows Damien and his family who move here from the US. They moved to Sydney. They live in a beach suburb of Sydney, and part of their trying to assimilate into their community and meet friends, they join their local surf lifesaving club at Bronte Beach. And lots of Australians join their surf lifesaving club if they live on the coast. It's a really popular beachside activity in Australia, especially doing nippers and sand gropers for kids. Nippers and sand gropers are like beach sports for kids, and kids learn water safety and fitness, and then eventually learn the skills to save lives in the surf and become surf lifesavers when they're older. So if you have had any experience of that. The only thing with this book, I gave it 4 out of 5. I thought Damien Cove had some really interesting insights into Australian culture to share. I did feel like his insight, though, was very white and very moneyed, if that makes sense. Not all Australians are white. Not all Australians live in beach culture, and not all Australians can afford to live in Bronte. So if that kind of gives you an idea of what I'm saying with this book, I do think it has some interesting insights, but I think it doesn't encompass a lot of Australians. It really excludes so many stories and so many voices. So, not all Australians are beach bronzed white Aussies with blonde hair. We're just not. Like, there is so many ways to be Australian, and so many colours to Australia, and so many lifestyles, and so many cultures, and this is just one really small isolated snippet of Australian culture, and I really don't think he acknowledges that through the book, which is a shame. So if you happen to grab Into the Rip by Damien Cove, just take that into consideration and read it through that filter when you read it, that there is a really large sector of the Australian population that is not included in this book. The 8th book that I read in December was High Season, and the name Nacho Figueras is huge on this cover, but it's actually written by Jessica Whitman. So I'm going to make a point of this because I'm not sure Nacho had a lot to do with this book. To be honest, I think this guy's clout is being used to sell this book, because I don't think he had much to do with this, in all honesty. One of the clues I had to that is Jessica's obviously done a bit of research into the horse world and the polo world, but this isn't really a book about horses and polo. So a lot of facts about horses and polo are kind of glossed over. There's not a lot of detail there, because I kind of got the impression that she's a romance writer and the context is horses, but you know, maybe her first-hand experience isn't in the horse industry. I could be wrong about that. But there was one particular, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but if you're very confident and very knowledgeable about a subject, and then you read a book on that subject and it's inaccurate, it really grates. So I have been involved in horses for a very long time. I've had horses since I was 10. So, you know, anything that in a book that's inaccurate about horses, or the way they're kept, or when the terminology is wrong, really grates on me. And I go, this person isn't horsey. They're just writing in that context, which is totally fine. Not going to judge that. But there was one particular bit where Jessica describes her main character posting to the canter. No. No. Posting is what you do to the trot. You do not post to the canter. So that straight away I went, this isn't, I don't think Nacho had a lot to do with this book. So anyway, I mean, this was steamy. This was a steamy read, girl. Yeah, if you want some scenes, Jessica writes some scenes. So if you can catch my drift there, this is a steamy romance. If you're not up for that, steer clear of Jessica's high season. But yeah, look, I enjoyed it for what it was. It was a fun read, and you know, I was in the mood for something lighthearted, not too taxing over Christmas at the end of the year. So I gave it 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it. But yeah, just be prepared that, you know, this is a romance. This is a steamy romance. So read it with that in mind. Okay. 1 to go. 2 to go. 1 to go. 1 to go. So the 9th book that I read this year, and this was one that was given to me by my husband to read on Christmas Eve, and he absolutely nailed it. I don't know how he did it. I did not have this book on my TBR. I had never heard of this author. He said he found this book at a secondhand bookshop and thought it sounded like something I'd like, and he absolutely nailed it. That was Nest by Inga Simpson. This book was one of my favorite things I read all year. Gee, it was amazing. It reminds me a bit of Over This Backbone by Yar Reeves that I read earlier in the year. It's set in the Australian bush. So our lead character, Jen, she's an artist, and she's returning to the community that she grew up in after 40 years. She's now an artist. She's giving art lessons to some of the young people in town, particularly this one boy, Henry, who seems very, very keen. And she's preparing some art for a local art exhibition. Her specialty is wildlife, local wildlife, and particularly birds in the local area. So she's an artist. And so during this book, one of Henry's female classmates goes missing. And we find out over time that when 40 years earlier, in the same community, when Jen was at school and a teenager and about Henry's age, one of her classmates also went missing. And then a week later, her father went missing. So we're learning about Henry's friend through the context of Jen, who has had this happen to her 40 years ago. And we're led to wonder if the two things are related because they happen to be in the same small community and involving the same people. This is not a thriller. Don't pick this up thinking that this is going to be some sort of forensic thriller, psychological crime scene investigation. It's not. It's absolutely not. I would say this is a work of fiction, probably maybe a little bit of mystery thrown in there, but the main plot is not about the forensics and the science of the missing people. Mainly this book focuses on Jen's experience of loss as a child and how we deal with that. And also how tragedy shapes you as a young person and then later on into adulthood. And how it shapes your friendships and your community. This book was absolutely beautiful. I read this, I devoured this book. The descriptions in this book of the Australian wildlife and the Australian bushland, I got absolutely lost in it. It was just beautiful. It's so gentle, it's so calming, it's nourishing, and it's very character driven. It's not really a plot driven book, but there's just something slow and beautiful about this book. It's like art. It sort of reminds you of looking at a picture. Gosh, I love this. I really enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to read more Inga Simpson. I already have one on hold at the library for when I go back to reading library books, and I loved it. Loved this book. Highly recommend. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5, definitely. And my husband nailed it. The last one that I read, and gee, I saved the best for last, I reckon. Number 10 was Irish Country Christmas by Patrick Taylor, which I listened to on Audible. And this is a Christmas book. This is a book that is entirely set at Christmas time about a community, and it is Christmas, and it is about the community at Christmas time. This is a Christmas book. So if you want to pick up a Christmas book, it's number 3 in the Irish Country series by Patrick Taylor, and I will definitely read more of these because I loved this. I absolutely love this. It's about 2 doctors in a small Irish village, country village called Ballybuckle, and it kind of reminds me of James Herriot. The All Creatures Great and Small series, the books and the older series. I haven't really watched the new one, so I'm not sure about that one, but the older series with Christopher Timothy. And I love those, and I love this. So if you want something that's nostalgic and old-fashioned and beautifully Christmassy and warm and cozy, this is the one. This is the book for you. 5 out of 5. I love this so much, and I will read more of them. So finally, let's rank my my favorite books of 2003. And I've put them into categories to make them easier to find. So I'll put pictures of the covers around here so you can see them. But historical fiction, I had 4 books that I gave 5 stars to this year. Those were Marmee by Sarah Miller, At the Water's Edge by Sarah Gruen, Horse by Geraldine Brooks, and Mrs. Wickham by Sarah Page. Then in the category of teen fiction or youth fiction, I had 3 that I gave 5 stars to. That was The Disreputable History of Frankie Landau-Banks by E. Lockhart, Every Summer After by Carley Fortune, and The Great Godden by Meg Rosoff. So in the category of non-fiction, I had 4 that I gave 5 stars to. And they are Mountain Tales by Saumya Roy, I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy, The Widow of Walcha by Emma Partridge, and Unpolished Gem by Alice Pung. So in the translated section, foreign books, I have 3 that I read this year that I gave 5 stars to. So that was Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukegawa, Breasts and Eggs by Mieko Kawakami, and Futari Escape, the series of graphic novels by Shoichi Taguchi. In the section of junior fiction, I had 2 books this year that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to, and that was Julia and the Shark by Kiran Millwood Hargrave, and also Runt by Craig Silvey. So speculative fiction, I had 1 that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to this year, and that was The Gifts by Liz Hyder. When it came to thrillers, I had 2 that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to this year, and that was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides and The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And finally, the biggest category, this is what I read most of, in the category of fiction. I had 8 books this year that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to. You can check out all the books that I read this year and what rank I gave them out of 5 stars on my Goodreads account, and my Goodreads ID is down in the comments section if you'd like to follow me on Goodreads. So my 8 top fiction this year that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to in 2023 was The 7 Days of Us by Francesca Hornack, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Over This Backbone by Yar Reeves, Foster by Claire Keegan, Spring Clean for the Peach Queen by Sasha Wosley, There Was Still Love by Fayvel Parrott, Nest by Inga Simpson, and An Irish Country Christmas by Patrick Taylor. So those are all of my favourite books from 2023 that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to. I can't wait to see what I get to read next year. I actually set myself a target this year of reading 100 books, and I don't normally do that because I think it's a bit arbitrary, but I just thought I'd do it for fun, and I actually got to 102 books this year that I read, so I was really, really proud of that. It's not something I normally do. I don't normally set an arbitrary target or a number, and if I hadn't got to 100, I wouldn't have been upset. But yeah, I got to 102, which was really good. So now what I have to do, the next 2 weeks, I'm heading up to my mum's place, and she lives on the coast in New South Wales, and we're going to have some lovely beach days, hopefully. So I have a pile of books. You may have seen it in my Instagram feed. I'm trying to decide which books to take on holidays with me, and I've narrowed it down to 8. I think 8 books, 8 novels for less than 2 weeks. It's probably overkill and will be very, very heavy in my suitcase. So I have to narrow that list down. I probably will I'm going to try to narrow it down to 3 or 4 books. I won't read 3 or 4 in less than 2 weeks, but it's good to have a little bit of a variety. So that's my job for this afternoon, is to narrow down my holiday TBR and pack to go to my mum's at the beach. So at least my next 2 or 3 vlogs will be from there, in Wandi and Dharawal country in New South Wales, which I absolutely cannot wait, and the kids are going to have a lovely time too. So I hope that you are having a lovely summer or a lovely time wherever you happen to be in the world. Comment down below where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear, and what you're getting up to post-Christmas. Can you believe it's 2024 already? Oh, mind blown. Anyway, love you all so much, bookworms. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so thankful that you stopped by and watched my content. I really am. I hope that you're safe and happy wherever you are in the world, and I look forward to seeing you in the next vlog.